to another Lords of Podcast Football Edition. I am your host, Seth Omega, and tonight I am joined by two of our analysts. We would have had three, but the other one is balls deep in his wife in the middle of the swamplands of Louisiana, where he had to fight an alligator off the top of her. Pretty damn funny shit. Anyways, let's move on to our wonderful panel. Number one on the panelist chart today is the Sleg Hammer, the carpenter himself. Slegno, what's going on, buddy?
Pretty good. I beat you in fantasy football. Slim margin. It was my birthday yesterday, and I had a third thing. Whatever the fuck. How are you doing, Seth?
I am. I've had a pretty rough week with the breaking of my fingers and my aunt's situation and all. But outside of that, I can't complain too terribly much because at the end of the day, I'm still alive and I still have a fucking blanket and I'm not freezing cold like some of the hobos outside. So that's always a wonderful way to look at things. And our next panelist is Mourn. And how you doing, Mourn?
I'm pretty good. Another day in the life, I guess. Fucking hate the Raiders right now. Can't stop the freaking Lions. You're kidding me, right?
Yeah, the Lions, they almost came out of nowhere with Ndamukong Suh, and really, that guy has to be the MVP of that team because he is just so fucking dominant. I honestly cannot recall seeing a defensive lineman being that dominating. And we're talking about someone that's seen Javon Curse, Warren Sapp.
The only guy I can call as dominating as him was Lawrence Taylor. And
yeah.
Lawrence Taylor was just everywhere on every freaking play.
Yeah,
of course, he was high on crack, too. So.
And he was a linebacker, even though he was a pass-rushing linebacker in a 3-4 system. But let's not cross hairs here. The very first topic we're going to talk about is if Tim Tebow is the son of Jesus, Tom Brady has got to be the son of God. Because Tom Brady brought back the New England Patriots from certain defeat at the hands of the Denver Broncos. Everybody was proclaiming, it's Tebow time, it's Tebow time. And at one point in time, the Broncos had a lead on the Patriots. But not so fast. The Broncos defense showed that they are exactly who we thought they were. They're very young. They're very inexperienced with the exception of Brian Dawkins and Champ Bailey. And overall, they were really just taken for a ride by the Patriots and really one of the better offensive masterminds. It seems like year in and year out, the Patriots find something new to do on offense. And when they do, it is so devastating. It could be Gronkowski. It could be Hernandez. It could be Welker. It could be Branch. It could be, the year they had Randy Moss. It could be him too. And it seems like year in and year out they find something new, another wrinkle to add, and it just makes them into a devastating football team. And my question to you is, if you had a choice to take Tom Brady or any other quarterback in the league, who would you take? Andrew.
Tom Brady, to me, I don't think there's any comparison. He has that, he can use any weapon he wants at any given time. You said Hernandez, Gronkowski, Welker. He can spearhead even he doesn't have much of a rushing attack. Ben Jarvis Green Ellis has a game, a good game every here and there, and you had Danny Woodhead last year. But Tom Brady just knows how to win, and everybody talks about Tim Tebow's intangibles. Tom Brady has that, and he's better at it. Plus, he can actually play the quarterback position. As for the question of would I take any other quarterback over Tom Brady? No. Maybe Big Ben, but Big Ben's been injured lately, and he's another one of those ones that he just knows how to win. Just so mentally tough. He knows how to rally his players. I mean, I know they lost to San Francisco last night, but I mean, he was still playing hard with that ankle, with Aldon Smith and all those San Francisco defensive linemen getting pressure on him every single play. He was still pushing so hard to try to score, get his team fired up. But Tom Brady does that even better. There's no question in my mind that Tom Brady is the best quarterback in the league right now. And if I was a GM right now and I was starting a team, if I was a GM in the NFL, we had a brand new fantasy type draft where all the players were available, I'd have Tom Brady as my number one pick. Because you can build a franchise around him, and plus he'd bring a smoking hot wife to your city.
Yes, so he's basically like Lane Kiffin, except his wife's hotter. What about you, Mourn? What do you think about Tom Brady?
If I was to pick between all the quarterbacks in the NFL right now, I'm probably going to hate myself for saying this right now, but I take Aaron Rodgers just because he's slightly younger. He's like 4 or 5 years younger. He's won a Super Bowl in the last couple of years. He's on the hottest team right now, and he's honestly more mobile. He's actually more marketable than Tom Brady, and I hate to say it that way, but he is. I mean, the one thing about Tom Brady that I don't really like all that much is that the man, yes, he does have all these great weapons, but when he doesn't have the prime weapon that he can actually throw to in the playoffs, he doesn't win. And unfortunately for him, he's, lately at least. And when he come to, he has Gronkowski now. Maybe that will get them through the playoffs. But he hasn't won a playoff game in 5 years, or 4 or 5 years now, 4 years. And it comes to the point to where you got to look at the postseason, what a guy does. And if you're going to go on postseason alone, you have several quarterbacks you could take over Brady. You got Drew Brees, for instance, who's won several playoff games lately. So I'm not 100% sold on it. And if you want to talk about weapons and all that, there's another team that you can argue that he takes the weapons that he has and makes them look a lot better than they really are. So Brady, numbers-wise, isn't the best quarterback in the league. And honestly, I would take him. Don't get me wrong. I would love to have Brady as my quarterback, especially being a Seahawks fan. But good Lord, when you have all these other quarterbacks to go through, I'm not sure he's number one.
Yeah, see, here's my thing with Brady, and I'll play a little bit of devil's advocate because that's kind of going to be my job tonight. On the plus side, he does have the 3 Super Bowl rings, but he did that with a better team around him. No team can win with just one player. I don't give a fuck who that player is. No team can win with just one player. Now, you have players like Peyton Manning who, when they get injured, the team will lose significantly less games, but let's be real here. I don't think the Colts would have won more than 8-9 games with Manning. On top of that, here's the thing that appeals to me about Brady. He makes the smart decision. He will, if the tight ends are covered over the middle of the field, if Gronkowski's covered or double covered, or maybe he has one of the better covered linebackers on him, he won't hesitate to throw to Hernandez and vice versa. On top of that, you got really no-name receivers outside of Chad Ochocinco, and Chad Ochocinco's not doing that much this year. You got these no-name receivers making catches and big plays for the Patriots. And they've done it time and time again. They've been able to take one player, plug them in, and when they plug them in, it works wonders. And there's certain players that will get up and leave, like Deion Branch went to Seattle. David Gibbons went to Tennessee. Neither of them had the success they had in New England, obviously because David Gibbons got hurt 2 or 3 times while he was here. And I know Deion Branch, well, he just didn't fit into the offensive scheme of the Seahawks. On top of that, the thing about Tom Brady is even though he makes these throws, he's not Superman. And he has shown that he can be replaceable. when he went down, I forget what year it was off the top of my head. I wanted to say it was 06 or 07. When he went down with that injury, and Matt Castle had to step in for the year, that Patriots team still went 11-5. Still went 11-5. So, I mean, and Matt Castle, a lot of people have called him very inconsistent. I'm not too sure if the offense that he was running in Kansas City would have fit him like it would now, because now they seem to be more run-based, setting off the play action pass, which is something that, can work very well, especially for a team like Kansas City that's always kind of been known for their running game over their, per se, quarterback play. Elvis Gerbach is not walking through the door anytime soon, and even if he was, he's not that great to begin with. Would I take Tom Brady over any other quarterback? Yes. I think you would have to. And Mourn made the point about Aaron Rodgers. And here's the thing about Aaron Rodgers. He's good. He's great. He can make a lot of the throws. He learned the offense in and out before he stepped onto the field. So he obviously had the ability to air it out and practice and see what mistakes he was making. On top of that, though, Aaron Rodgers is in an offense, and I know I say this a lot about Drew Brees and Aaron Rodgers, but they're both in offensive systems that make them better. The systems around, and it's something, and I'm not judging them as saying that they're system quarterbacks, but that's what good coaches do. They will take their quarterback and build an offense around that player. What can you do? What can't you do? Can you throw the deep ball? If you can, then you're throwing deep balls sometimes on first down. You'll test the defense to throw the deep ball. But, the thing is with Aaron Rodgers that I don't like is he's injury prone. The kid's had a couple of concussions already. And the way the NFL's cracking down on concussions, I would not be surprised if Aaron Rodgers actually doesn't have that long of a career. If he only plays another 4 or 5 years, whereas Brady could probably pull off another 4 or 5 years just fine. And he's already a couple years older. And he's played more. I don't know. Like I said, it's hard to say that you wouldn't take Tom Brady. Or it's easy to say you wouldn't take Tom Brady. Not hard. Well, it's both in a way. It's easy to say you wouldn't take Tom Brady, but you don't know what you would do unless you had a Tom Brady. If you had that kind of quarterback, I guarantee you if we brought any Patriots fan in here and asked them the same question, they would take Tom Brady in a heartbeat. Because I remember when Brady came in for Drew Bledsoe, the Patriots were fucking horrid for the last 2 or 3 years under Bledsoe. Bledsoe just wasn't his same old self, and Tom Brady came in and it was like that. He just rejuvenated that team and made them a lot better. But to answer the question, yes, I would take Tom Brady, but I could see the other end of the spectrum for not taking Tom Brady, maybe because he's older, maybe because maybe some people think he's a system quarterback. Look at Donovan McNabb. Since he left the system in Philadelphia, he's not been the same McNabb. What's to say if Brady left New England, he wouldn't be the same Brady? You can't dismiss it. You obviously can't dismiss it because he's been in New England his whole career. I don't know. It's a toss-up, really. But I thought that was an interesting topic because everybody's giving love to Tebow and everybody's giving love to Rodgers, but you don't hear the love for Brady as much. And Brady, I say this lightly, but you guys need to enjoy Brady while he's here. Because you get a quarterback once in every 10 years that plays as phenomenal as Brady's played. You know, in the 80s you had Joe Montana. In the 90s you had Steve Young, Troy Aikman. There's a rare chance you got two. In the 2000s you got Manning and you got Brady. You know, it's phenomenal what they do on the field. It really is. Does anybody else have anything to add on to that?
You brought up Peyton Manning, and I've actually had the pleasant ability to see him live before, and the way he runs the game is beyond comprehension. You think about how the game was played before he came in the league, and we've seen no huddle offenses before. Buffalo had it in the early '90s and very successful with it, but not in the way he runs it. And if you're going to compare Brady to Manning, the only difference between the two is honestly Super Bowl championships. And I think Brady was stuck with some horrible defenses. If it wasn't for that, he'd have more. It's to me just beyond my mind how someone who is the best at his craft possibly I've ever seen has only one championship, yet people like Ben Roethlisberger who lucks himself into passes left and right. And I mean, the guy is constantly fundamentally just a bad quarterback. And if you don't understand what I mean by that, it basically, when you have a guy who holds the ball as much as he does, he should be worse than he is. I mean, the guy gets hit way too much. And yet he has several championships. And if Peyton Manning, when healthy, is the best quarterback in the league. It's improving back every year. And this year, the Colts proved, without a shadow of a doubt, how bad they are without their quarterback. And I don't know, but for sure. But last time Brady was on the field for his team, they almost made the playoffs. So that's the only comparison I've got.
Andrew?
I understand your point about Big Ben. I mean, there's fundamental flaws in his mechanics, in some of his decision making, and Seth made a great point about, the Patriots' defense that's kind of been the biggest thing that's held them back over the past couple of years. Especially I felt, personally at least, in the Super Bowl loss against the Giants. Was that 3 years ago?
That would be 2008.
So, 4 years ago then. Almost 4 years ago.
4 seasons.
4 seasons, thank you. I just think Tom Brady is the more complete quarterback than Aaron Rodgers. Especially because Tom Brady didn't have, Brett Favre to learn under and then learn that system. He was thrown in there rather abruptly in place of Drew Bledsoe.
He was under a full season behind Drew Bledsoe. And don't forget how great Drew Bledsoe really was for a time there. For about a 6-7 year stretch, he was one of the top 5 quarterbacks, not top 3 in the league.
Oh, no, I agree. But when Tom Brady was under him, Drew Bledsoe was abysmal at best. Because, I'm not young, but younger, and I didn't understand football as much. I even remember the Patriots teams being absolute horrible back then. And Tom Brady came in and he absolutely changed the face of New England football and even football in general. I mean, people, they do stand up and they take notice when a quarterback has that much raw talent and ability to not only use what he has in terms of weapons around him, but also to be able to do it himself with his raw talent. So, without a question, I take Tom Brady. I do think Tom Brady is the best quarterback in the NFL right now.
Valid points from the both of you, and I think there are a couple other differences between Manning and Brady. Honestly, I think for the most part, Peyton Manning's played in a harder division most of his career. I mean, he was playing in the AFC East when the Dolphins teams were pretty dominant. Then he turned around and he went to the AFC South where it was Tennessee and Indianapolis, and then it was Jacksonville and Indianapolis, and now it's Houston and Tennessee somewhat, So I think Manning's had a little bit more difficult couple of years. Because, I mean, you got to think the Dolphins are going to have a top 10 pick for, I believe, the third or fourth time this decade.
Yeah.
And the Bills are the Bills.
And the Jets weren't that great for a long time. They were good. They were like a 9-win team at the best, though.
Yeah, you know, the Jets are who we thought they were. Oh. But that is going to cover our big-time NFL discussion.
Because Seth refuses to cover San Francisco, Seattle.
Yes,
just want to throw that out there.
Because that game is irrelevant. San Francisco's going to win.
Wait. San Francisco is not irrelevant.
Yeah, it is irrelevant. That game legitimately, even if Seattle finds a way to win, that game legitimately could have absolutely no meaning whatsoever.
What about if Green Bay was to lose?
Okay, what about it?
They could still have ramifications for the home field advantage.
Yeah, and what's your point? Yeah, if Green Bay were to lose, I guess it could have ramifications for home field advantage, but let's be fair here. San Francisco should run through Seattle. I mean, Seattle has been playing extremely well lately, but they've not been playing. They're too inconsistent on offense. That's their problem.
And the 49ers are the most consistent team in NFL on offense?
No, they're not, but it's the NFC West. I mean, it's just, they've been notorious for not having very good teams out there, and I'm just saying it's not a game. There's really no game that's that exciting. I mean, you could make an argument for New York and New York, but most of these games anymore for the last 2 weeks are divisional games. And to be fair, most of these divisions are wrapped up. You know, including the NFC West, including the NFC North.
Well, I know the NFC West is wrapped up, but Seattle...
You know, and it's going to take a small miracle for any other team outside of Atlanta and Detroit to get into the playoffs.
I do have one question I want to ask, and I think it was barely brought up, but what is the ramifications of the loss that Green Bay had and the losses they are having on personnel right now? That team did not look like the team earlier in the season that mopped through people. They looked very flat, and they honestly look like a team that can be beaten by anybody, literally anybody, not just a figuratively thing.
Yeah,
now, I'm curious what you guys think about that team right now, because they're still the number one seed. And they're probably going to have it because I don't see them losing both the next two games. But them in the playoffs getting that bye, yeah, they'll get healthier, but are they going to be Are they going to be ready for the playoffs?
Well, it was, if you look at the game itself, it was more timing. You know, Aaron Rodgers didn't have the time to progress through his reads. Hall was in the backfield. He was on him like a fucking spider monkey. And that was the big thing. I mean, they showed if you get pressure on Aaron Rodgers, then he's not that good. Plus, they dropped more balls than Jenna Jameson does. And it's just, you know, at this league, it's hard to say that on any given Sunday, any team will beat any other team. But that's entirely true. And you got to think all these guys are professional football players. And all these guys, or all these teams rather, have cap floors. And they have salary caps. So these teams are evenly matched. It's really just any team could be any other team on any given Sunday. If you want a prime example of that, look at the Chiefs game versus the Packers. You know, there's no reason in hell the Chiefs should win that. No starting running back. Their star player on defense is not there. And their star running back is out. And they just beat a team that was 13-0 before that. I don't know. You know, can the Packers be beaten? Yes, they can. Will they be beaten? Yes, they will. It's just the way football works. It's been that way since fucking Pop Warner was teaching kids, and it's followed through up through Sandusky and whoever the hell else you want to throw out there.
I will say this about the Packers, though. The Chiefs game definitely showed that the Packers' lack of a running game is hurting them big time. James Starks was out, and they had to rely on Ryan Grant, and they just can't muster up enough offense on the ground. And if they're stuck relying on nothing but passing, it's going to be telegraphed, and teams are going to find ways to shut it down like Kansas City does. When they finally get to facing good teams every week in the playoffs, it will come back to bite the Packers. And, everybody's still calling for the Packers to make it to the Super Bowl and in a lot of cases win the Super Bowl, and I do say that I'm one of them, but this Chiefs game definitely showed that they're mortal. And if you put together a solid game plan, the Packers can and will be beaten.
Well, and the Chiefs didn't do anything fancy. It
doesn't have to be fancy. It just has to be a solid game plan.
Yeah, it's just cover zero, and all they did was blitz the shit out of Aaron Rodgers and said, make a throw. And when you're playing man-to-man on those receivers, and you're daring him to make a throw, and you're getting so much pressure on him, he's not getting through his first read, it's bound to happen. That's the thing with the teams like the Packers, the Saints, the Patriots. You can force them to do what you want them to do. You can force their hand. Now, I don't know if Mike McCarthy wasn't smart enough to run more slant routes and try to defeat that man coverage, but all I know is teams that like to pass, when you can shut them down passing, it's hard for them to win, because most times teams that throw the ball a lot don't have a running game, whereas teams that run the ball a lot can rely on play action. And even if they're only getting 2 to 3 yards per game on play action or on runs, if they get to their play action, it opens up, and a prime example, that's Tennessee. You want to look at that, especially against Baltimore earlier in the year. They feared Chris Johnson so much that all it took was one fake handoff and Matt Hasselbeck would throw for 300 yards. It's almost like fucking clockwork. It's amazing. A lot of people do think the Packers are going to win the Super Bowl. I do not. Anybody that's played football knows that when the weather gets really fucking cold, those balls get hard as shit. And the Packers are having a hard time catching balls now. What is going to happen to them when it's fucking 20 below zero in Wisconsin and those balls hit their hands? The Packers can be beaten. Their defense, I hate to give him props, but Chris Berman said it. You see what a 31st ranked defense looks like when they don't force turnovers. And that's what I think about the Packers,
Now, to finish our discussion, I hate to bring something out of the blue, but what are your thoughts of the AFC top of the heap? Because we already know what everybody thinks about the New England Patriots, that they're really good. Although they don't really have a running game, like you just mentioned there, they're a lot of people's pick to make it out of the AFC. My question is there's also you got the Ravens, Steelers, and whatnot, all fighting for it. But all of them are very seriously flawed teams. Who makes it out of that mess that is the AFC?
If I had to pick one right now, it would still be the Patriots. And I tell you why. The Steelers and the Ravens are normally pretty good on defense, but we have seen this weekend what happens to those two defenses when they play a decent offense. And the Patriots have that decent offense. You know, the Ravens got lit up this weekend by San Diego, no pun intended. And then to turn around, the 49ers ran up and down on the Steelers like it was nobody's business. I mean, they legit made the steel curtain look like fucking vinyl. And they weren't dominating on the line. They weren't attacking the gaps. And it just made them look horrible. And I think the team, I'll say this, it's going to be one of three teams. It's either going to be Pittsburgh, Baltimore, or New England. And out of those three, I like New England. Houston doesn't have a chance in hell without their two quarterbacks. They finally met their kryptonite this weekend in Super Cam. And, you know, I just don't see it with Houston. And the two wildcard teams, one of those will be Pittsburgh and or Baltimore, and the other one will be probably New York. Then you got the last division, the AFC West, which isn't even worth mentioning. So that's where we're at.
Well, what happened to Houston was just a damn shame. I mean, they put together a good season. You have, Bill Parcells putting together a hell of a defense.
Bill Parcells, you mean
no,
Wade Phillips?
Wade Phillips.
Wrong Cowboys former quarter coach, yeah.
I know, I realized as soon as I said it.
Wrong old white guy.
There we go. It put together a hell of a defense, and it's just a shame what happened to both their quarterbacks, though I doubt that Matt Leinart could have, you know, kept it up regardless. But, I mean, even if they lost Matt Leinart. So like Seth said, Houston's out. Baltimore and Pittsburgh looked flat this week, so I still think it's New England. But I don't think we should count the AFC West out. If Tebow keeps on winning games, what's to say that he can't still do that in the playoffs as well?
The New England Patriots.
Okay, so they win one game, and maybe they don't face the Patriots in the second round, and the Patriots somehow lose to either Baltimore or Pittsburgh or whatever team they face.
Would you put Tim Tebow? Okay, let me ask you this.
I'm just saying, right, the biggest thing I've learned this NFL season is do not count Tim Tebow out. Horrible mechanics, he's not a quarterback at all, but somehow he finds a way to fucking win. It pisses me off.
And who has he played worth a fuck?
Do I need to pull up the schedule?
He played Detroit, who had a good defense. They whooped his ass 45-10. Then he turned around and played New England, and New England took him to town too.
He wasn't the reason they lost that game. To be fair enough, that defense played like crap.
Well, Tim Tebow did fumble, which...
Yeah, but...
And he also ran for 90-something yards, and he was the top rusher that game.
And didn't he pass decently, too?
Yeah, he played well, but he still turned the ball over.
Let me get the stats here. God damn it, I want the recap, I want the box score. Okay, he threw for 194 yards.
How many interceptions?
0.
And how many fumbles did he have?
1?
2 fumbles, he lost one of them.
Yeah, so see, I mean, that's just...
1 turnover. Okay, how many turnovers did New England have? Didn't they have 1?
Looks like they had 0.
0? Okay.
Yeah.
The defense played like crap. Got it.
Yeah, 0.
Well, I wouldn't say Denver's defense played like crap.
How many points did they give up?
They gave up 41 points.
They played like crap.
And Denver's defense has been mortal the past couple weeks. I mean, everybody, when Tebow was first winning those games, everybody was crediting Tebow, and then a couple people were saying, whoa, it's Denver's defense, but they're showing signs of mortality again. They gave up 32 to Minnesota. Let that sink in. 32 points to the Vikings.
32 points to Christian Ponder. Got it. Not shocked.
And I'm pretty sure that was the Vikings sans Adrian Peterson.
Yes,
it was.
And they had Christian Ponder.
Then they gave up 10 to the Bears. I mean, the Bears without Forte and Cutler.
The Bears.
Thank you. And then they get 41. So, I mean, I personally don't think that Denver is going to go very far. Their defense is getting the shit kicked out of them again, and I mean, they'll finally face decent competition in the playoffs. But I'm just saying, don't fully count Tim Tebow out, because I did that earlier this season, and it came back to bite me. So I'm just saying, he does have a chance to do damage in the playoffs if he takes care of the football. And he's been passing a lot better lately. He's found another weapon.
He has, but I don't like his chances going against a team like the Jets again. Because if he has to play the Jets again, even if it is in Denver,
if playoffs started today, he'd be facing Pittsburgh.
I don't trust.
No, he wouldn't. He'd be facing the Jets.
No, he'd be facing Pittsburgh.
He'd be facing Pittsburgh.
Oh, I guess he would.
Because
Denver would be the 4. Okay, I got you.
Because of the division league get top seeds.
Yeah, I was like, what the hell? Wait a minute.
Same reason Seahawks got home field advantage against the Saints last year in the playoffs at 7-9.
And went marching in on that ass. Holla. Anyways. What?
If there's an earthquake happening, you should remember to tackle.
And give him Skittles.
Is that it for that topic?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
I wanted to say one thing before we don't totally buy out of the Jets if they get in. They're one of those teams that have the makeup of a team that can beat some of these teams, especially that defense if they get going. Last week they sucked balls. Yes, we know that. But of course, Philly's playing like the team they're supposed to be playing like 6 weeks ago. So I don't like the AFC that much this year as a team's going to definitely make it out of there, because the Super Bowl winner conference most likely. I'm pretty firm on that. And most likely we'll see the Super Bowl champion come from the AFC this year. But which team? One of 5-6 teams can do it.
You can do it. Alright, that's all for that topic. Now, we're going to move on to our next topic. The wonderful world of football bowl games. Probably one of the most exciting times of the year, because you can legitimately sit down on your couch any night of the week and see football on television. Who doesn't love that? Who cares if it's 2 shitty MAC schools going up for 63 points? Who cares if it's 2 shitty Sunbelt schools that can't play defense? Who cares if it's 2 shitty Pac-12 schools? Oh, wait, I'm not judged. My bad, guys. So we're going to cover a couple of bowl games that we randomly selected. And when I say randomly selected, I mean I took a dart and a dartboard and threw it at a giant fucking piece of paper with all these bowls on it. And the ones that hit are the ones we picked. Actually, it wasn't that sophisticated. We just picked them out of a hat because we're poor and I have terrible accuracy with darts. So, to go ahead and get us kicked off, we have the almighty AutoZone Liberty Bowl between the Cincinnati Bearcats and the Commodores of Vanderbilt.
Yay.
Mourn, what are your thoughts on this intriguing matchup?
Am I supposed to know something about both these teams?
Yeah, that would help.
So I can't go on a rant about how much I think this shouldn't be a bowl game.
Yes, you can.
I can?
No, you can't.
Oh. Well, can I just pick my winner?
No, you gotta go in depth on it.
In depth on Cincinnati, a team I've never seen play this year, and Vanderbilt, who a team I've never seen play this year.
Well, yeah, you were supposed to do your research on these bowl games.
I thought we were doing research on other things, on things that actually mattered, not games between teams that shouldn't be in bowl games.
Why should these two teams not be in a bowl game?
Well, let me think here. Neither of them should be.
Oh, that was really in-depth analysis.
I don't know. Honestly, I have no idea
Neither
what
of them
Vanderbilt or Cincinnati have beaten to deserve to be in even the Liberty Bowl, which is going to be on December 30th, and it pits off those two teams.
Well, Vanderbilt has actually had a fairly decent season. They beat a team in the BCS Fiesta Bowl last year, in the Yukon Huskies earlier this year.
So did Cincinnati.
Yeah, so both teams have beaten Yukon.
They've beaten their only common opponent.
Yeah, both teams have beaten their only common opponent. Well, no, they had another common opponent. Both of them lost to Tennessee. And both of them lost in Knoxville. However, one of them lost in overtime. The other one just flat out got their ass whooped.
Okay. Cincinnati should be in a bowl game. I was being facetious. I'm sorry. But
yes, you were. But,
like,
I mean,
Vanderbilt Cincinnati's a good team. They should mop up on this game, honestly.
Well, Vanderbilt's a pretty good team.
No, they aren't. They were 2-6 in their conference, 6-6 overall.
They were 6 points away from beating both fucking Georgia and Arkansas. Two top 25 teams.
They won out of conference games like Elon.
So?
Ooh. And Army.
So?
Yeah, this is a team that strikes fear in opponents.
So, when Vanderbilt fucks around and wins another bowl game, what are you going to say then?
There's 6 team that got into a bowl game because there's too many bowl games.
And what about UCLA that's 6-7 and got into
They shouldn't be in a bowl game. I have no bones about that. They have a losing record. They shouldn't be in it.
I think we all kind of agree on the point that there's too many bowl games and teams that are
there
6-6
is too many bowl games. There really is. But with a team like Vanderbilt, I mean, it's not like Vanderbilt's playing in the BCS title game here. They're playing in the Liberty Bowl, which alongside the Music City Bowl is one of the lower tier bowls for the SEC. And they're playing a team that, quite frankly, is pretty good when they match up against the Big East. Now, when they match up against the Southeastern Conference, they're not nearly as good because obviously they got beat the hell down when they played Tennessee.
They beat Austin Peay.
Well, Austin Peay's a decent school. I've been there several times. Nice campus, a couple cute chicks. That ass. Well, I'm just saying.
No, in all honesty, I think that this game will not be close. Yes, Vanderbilt's a better than the record says school, but Cincinnati should, in all likelihood, handle this team. It shouldn't be a close game in the end.
Andrew, what are your thoughts?
I think it was the ESPN Bowl special, and they were saying that Vandy should roll. I forgot who it was. I think it was McShay and someone else, but
Yeah.
well, you know. But Cincinnati is getting Zach Caleros back. He's the one that did decent. He was young last year, passing for the Bearcats. And he's coming really strong this year. He's been out the past 3 games, but he's supposed to start in the Liberty Bowl due to the extended period of time since their last game against UConn. Since they have Claros back, I honestly think that Cincinnati is going to take this one. Blowout, no, because Vandy still has Zach Stacy. Not the most dynamic runner in the SEC, but a 1,000-yard rusher this year. So I do think Cincinnati's going to take this one. If I really need to give a score, I don't think it's going to be that much of a defensive battle. It'll probably be about 35-28.
Yeah, it's hard for me to side with Cincinnati because when you look at their overall frame of work, I mean, the Big East is not, honestly, it's not that impressive of a conference to me. When I think Big Three conferences, I automatically think SEC, Big Ten, Pac-12. Automatically. And that used to be the Big 12, but, you know, they're not that great anymore either. And they're okay from time to time, but without the 12 teams, they just lost their thump about them. That being said, when I look at the teams they played, while Vanderbilt's out-of-conference schedule has been kind of soft, it's important to note that their in-conference schedule has actually been one of the toughest in the SEC, in the eastern side at least. They had the unfortunate task of drawing Alabama and Arkansas. They did get beat the fuck down by Alabama, but that's pretty much been the story from everybody this year. I mean, Alabama's an extremely well-coached team and an extremely talented team, and they probably have about 9 starters that are going to be playing in the NFL, which is pretty damn scary if you ask me. In terms of Arkansas, they almost won that game versus Arkansas. Just a couple little mistakes. And obviously a very aggressive and testy game. As you mentioned, Zach Stacy, who is really kind of a dark horse runner. I mean, a lot of people didn't want him coming out of high school. He's proven that he could play ball in the SEC, and he's extremely intelligent. You almost have to be to go to Vanderbilt. Another playmaker they have is Aaron Rodgers' little brother, Jordan, who has played outside of his mind lately. I don't know how the hell he didn't get recruited by a bigger school, but he did elect to go to Vanderbilt as a JUCO transfer, and he's led that team to being extremely well. And they got Golden Tate's little brother, and they have an aggressively stingy defense. I mean, their defense is going to hit you. They're going to make you hurt. They're going to try to take away anything you got. And I don't know why, but it seems like Vanderbilt shows up for these games. A couple of years ago, the Music City Bowl, they had the task of playing then ACC runner-up Boston College. And they beat Boston College it was only by like 2 points. But Vandy came to play, and that was the second best team in the ACC that year. So it's just hard for me to wrap my head around them not being able to beat a Cincinnati team that plays in a very overhyped Big East. If I had to pick a final score, I would say 35-17 in favor of Vandy, but only because they get a last-minute touchdown to kind of seal the deal. I think Zach Stacy and Jordan Rodgers are just way too much. And I think Vandy's defense can shut down that attack just like UT's defense did.
I don't think anybody's overhyping the Big East, for the record.
Well, I think the media overhypes the Big East. West Virginia.
No one overhypes the Big East. This game is only being talked about because you want to talk about it.
This game is being talked about because it's one of the few games that's happening before December 1st.
It's one of the few games that's happening before December that's A, between 2 AQ schools, and B, that should be relatively close.
Yeah. For our next bowl game, we kick it to Slegna, who's going to give us our next bowl game. So go ahead, Slegna.
Okay, this one maybe Homer picked to cover, but I'm going to be covering the Valero Alamo Bowl between my Washington Huskies and the Baylor Bears, who obviously has quite a good quarterback in Robert Griffin III. I heard he won some kind of trophy this year, didn't he?
Yeah, he won some kind of trophy. I want to say it was the what was it? It was the running back of the year, I think.
It was a Chuck Bednarik award or something.
Yeah, there we go. So, Baylor's got the Heisman winner playing quarterback for them. One of the most dynamic offenses in the whole nation. When Baylor and TCU first played, I think it was like almost the opener for the college football season. Everybody was shocked that Baylor, beat TCU, and TCU gave up all these points. And now we look back on this game and we think, okay, it's just kind of par for the course for Robert Griffin III. Baylor's 5th in the nation in passing yards per game, 18th in the nation in rushing yards per game, 6th in the nation for points for per game. They've been blowing past defenses all year long, and even in losing efforts, they've been putting up big numbers. And on the other side, you got Washington. I've been watching them all year. They are similar to Baylor in a lot of ways. They don't have a very good defense, and they have a dynamic offense, but if you match it up, Baylor's offense is far more powerful and can do a lot more things in the air and on the ground than Washington, and with Washington's defense, it's going to be, unfortunately, very, very ugly to watch. I think almost, Washington's 2 games regular season games against Nebraska, not the bowl game that we won last year. I don't know. It's something I almost don't want to be, I don't want to admit it, but, Robert Griffin III is going to have a hell of a day against a Washington defense, especially that secondary that's been giving up yards. Again, 473 to Bo Levi Mitchell, Eastern Washington University's quarterback. I mean, granted, it was coming off their FCS championship year, but at the same time, that's just inexcusable. Baylor's going to roll in this one, but Washington will score enough points to make it look like it was a close enough game, but it won't be. I'm thinking it's going to be like 56 or so to 35. Washington will score points, but it won't nearly be enough.
Yeah, to piggyback on that, there is no way Seattle, if Washington stays in this game. I have this as one of my more confident picks on the confident pick list I have before the bowl pick'em. I have them at 33 out of 35 as third most confident game. Right up there with Southern Miss being Nevada and Boise State being Arizona State. Yeah, this game shouldn't. And I used to root heavily for the Huskies, and at times I do. But this game has blowout written all over it. They can't stop anybody. Oregon State beat them. They almost lost to Washington State. Come on, guys. This team is not going to be in this game, and I'm going to say 56 to 21.
I want to know who has a hard on for the Huskies, because this is about the 3rd or 4th year they've been in a bowl. Well, they weren't in a bowl game 3 years ago because they were like 0-12. But this is.
That was 4 years ago.
Whatever. And for the last couple of years, they've been in a bowl. They've had to play Nebraska, and they had to play fucking now Baylor. Jesus Christ, somebody's got a hard on of hatred for the Huskies. They really do.
No, well, they beat Nebraska last year.
They beat Nebraska, but I don't.
Yeah, but Jake Locker's not. Yeah, Jake
Locker's not the reason why they lose. They could have Jake Locker on this team this year, and they still lose by 40 or by 30. It's not like it's not the offense.
Anybody outside of Chris Polk.
They don't have a defense. Their secondary is the worst in the nation. I mean, literally.
All I'm saying is Jake Locker's not walking through that door anytime soon. And he was the reason they beat Nebraska last year.
Marcus Trufant's not walking through that door, and I bet they wish he was. Hey, they take Nate Robinson right now.
I'm sure they would. Either way, when I look at this game, there's one thing that sticks out to me and one thing alone. This game is going to make Robert Griffin a couple $1 million.
This is the type of game that can get him from being a possible 15th pick in the draft to possibly 3rd pick. This is one of the.
Well, thank you, LK. I appreciate you interrupting me, you dick.
Mm-hmm.
As I was saying, right now Robert Griffin is projected to go at least number 7. At least number 7. With this game against this defense that is so bad, I mean, I'm sorry. I just, you want to talk about MAC schools having bad defenses? Washington needs to be playing in the MAC. That's how bad their defense is. That being said, I think RG3 is going to have a huge day. I don't even think it's going to be close. And I do think that they will have to call off the dogs in the 3rd or 4th quarter. Baylor wins 45-7. I know Baylor's defense is horrible, but I don't see Washington having the type of success against the Baylor that they would. And plus the game is in Texas. It might as well be a fucking home game for goddamn Baylor. That being said,
Washington is 115th in pass yards against, and I didn't want to count through the rankings because it's not numerically ranked, but it looked somewhere around 80 or 90th in rushing yards given up. I mean, they've just given up piles of yards all season long.
They're the worst defense I've seen come out of the Pac-12 outside of Washington State in a long time. I mean, the state of Washington can look over at Washington State and laugh like 3 years ago when they gave 50 points up like 8 times. But this team, for a team that's made to a bowl game, I have no idea how they won 7 games.
Chris Polk.
Chris Polk, yeah.
That's all you need to know. And, he's leaving.
Oh, yeah, we know that.
He's
gone.
He's gone like NSYNC, homie.
If he doesn't leave, there's something really wrong with him.
Yeah, well, he's not Jake Locker. I kind of feel bad for Baylor because honestly, and no offense to Washington and all their wonderful fans, but Baylor deserves a way better game than this.
Yeah.
They're number 12. The Washington Huskies are 100th in points allowed or points against.
And where's Baylor? You'll laugh about that. They're worse.
Yeah, and Baylor is worse. I'm not sure about yards, but I don't know. I kind of feel bad for Washington. It's almost like, have you ever seen that little kid that's getting ready to run out in the middle of the road?
That's kind of isn't that bad. Washington is not as. Their defense is horrible. Don't get me wrong. I'm not defending their defense. I'm surprised that the defensive coordinator comes back next year. But
they have a defensive coordinator?
Exactly. But if you look at this, Baylor, their defense is the reason why they're in this game. And so the thing that Washington's going to get blown out, but they're starting to give up points. And that's the thing is, if for any weird reason that offense stalls at all, that team dies. And the same thing with Washington. And that's why this game is really compelling.
Yeah, I just think that it's not going to end well. I wish Washington had a better matchup, and I wish Baylor had a better matchup. But we'll talk about that another time. On the next topic, Mourn is going to give us our third bowl game. Go ahead, Mourn.
I forget. I'm sorry. I may have to edit this out. But what were the games we were covering? Sorry, I don't have them written down.
The only reason I kicked it to you was because I didn't know either.
Oh, God. Okay, I'll just do the next one as well. Next one is the Insight Bowl. We've got a highly underachieving Iowa team, at least personally I feel that way, against Oklahoma and Landry Jones.
Oklahoma.
So, stop.
Did you just say an underachieving Ohio team?
Iowa.
I think I said Iowa.
Sound like you said Ohio.
Okay, well, if I said Iowa, yes, underachieving Iowa team. If I said Ohio, I meant to say Iowa. Anyways, this personally is not just the Insight Bowl. This is what I'm dubbing the Landry Jones NFL tryout. I'm not kidding. This is going to make or break Landry Jones' draft stock. And this is going to be the difference of a couple $1 million for him. Iowa's defense has been okay this year. They gave up 31 to Northwestern, 24 to Indiana. They lost to Minnesota, of all teams. But, I mean, they only gave up 24 to Michigan. So they've been on and off all season. And they definitely could have played a lot better all season long. But this is going to be the Oklahoma show. Landry Jones should have a good day at the very least. Oklahoma had a couple unforgivable losses this year. I mean, they lost to Texas Tech for no reason. They lost to Baylor. We just talked about Baylor, and I mean, obviously we all know they got creamed against their in-state rivals, the Cowboys, Oklahoma State.
Yeehaw! Pow, 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 pow.
Thank you, Seth.
You're welcome.
So I think this is going to be all Oklahoma in this game. Iowa will be able to do a little bit here and there, but Oklahoma. I mean, everybody talks about their offense, but their defense isn't horrible either, and they should be able to stymie anything that Iowa can put together. So it really is a Landry Jones tryout. The focus is going to be on Landry Jones. The commentators are going to talk about nothing but Landry Jones, and where he goes in the draft, and also his wide receiver Ryan Broyles as well, because his draft stock's risen all year long because he's been Jones' favorite target.
Second round pick.
What?
Second round pick.
Which I think is overrated. I mean, personally, I think he just got elevated thanks to his good quarterback play.
I think Ryan Broyles made Landry Jones.
So, I mean, there's another thing, and that will be one big thing that the commentators will mention over and over again, much to the viewers' annoyance. And NFL scouts are going to be there, a bunch of them. I'm guessing, because they're going to be all watching Landry Jones to see if he's really worth that top 5, top 10 pick.
Which he's not.
I personally don't think so, but...
Overrated. Clap, 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 clap. Overrated.
We'll
clap,
see.
clap,
And if
clap,
he can
clap,
put
clap.
together a good performance against Iowa, you will see him go top 5 or top 10 in the draft, and, you know, it depends who...
I think he's going to the Seahawks.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
I sure fucking hope not. But I think Oklahoma takes this one, as overrated as Landry Jones is. And I don't think it will be that pretty either. I think it's going to be, 40 to 40 something. I'll just go 40 to 21. I just won't be able to keep up.
I'm going to say Landry Jones is possibly the most overrated quarterback in NCAA football right now, and the fact that conference really wasn't as good as people say it was is truthful. They'd faced some teams that got lofty records, or lofty number rankings, and this game is appealing for the fact that I'm curious if Iowa can get up for this game and actually do something here. I actually don't have it that ranked high on where I think this game's going to end, but I do have Oklahoma winning. I'm not stupid. I'm not that completely off my knockers, but I don't see Landry Jones as great as an NFL prospect as people are laying him out there to be, based mainly on what he's had to work with that team. He has a really, really good receiving core, and that will save you in college football a lot more than even in the NFL. So Oklahoma will win. It won't be close. I'm hoping it's going to be close. Maybe one of those games I put on, but I'm saying 42-17.
Very compelling stuff there, Mr. Mourn. Always appreciate your wonderful insight.
Sorry about my lack of care about Oklahoma, but really, in all honesty, this team shouldn't be where they're at. They should be in a better bowl game. This is almost a slap in the face for them to be here. And
I wouldn't say anything. I was being legitimate. I appreciate your insight on the game. To me, if I were Landry Jones, I would take my happy ass back to Oklahoma for my senior year. And the reason I say that is this. Oklahoma quarterbacks, Sam Bradford, Jason White, Josh Heupel, none of them have really lived up to the hype at all. Landry Jones, probably not much of an exception. He doesn't do the little things well. Landry Jones is almost like Christian Ponder without being worth taking in the top round, the first round. And the only reason I say that is because Christian Ponder had a pretty decent body of work at Florida State. But that's not here nor there. Landry Jones, I think Ryan Broyles makes Landry Jones better. I think Ryan Broyles is extremely underrated as a prospect for the NFL. He's the NCAA's all-time leading receiver. So that alone should tell you something. I just think that Landry Jones is made better by his team around him. I will give Oklahoma credit where credit's due. They did go into Tallahassee and win a very tough game against the Florida State team. They did beat down Texas, and they've played pretty decent football. Not great, but decent. But here's the thing. Iowa played in a tougher conference. I think we could all agree on that. And Iowa has beaten some pretty good teams like Michigan. I almost wanted to say Iowa pulls the upset, but something won't let me. I think it's going to be a close game. I think the final score is going to be 24-21 Oklahoma, because I think Iowa's massively underrated. I think they're a fairly young team, and they need to grow. When they grow, they'll be pretty damn deadly, I would say. And continuing on our bowl special, we have the last game of the evening. It is the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame versus the Seminoles of Florida State. Both teams had very disappointing years by their standards. Of course, I guess that's nothing new if you're a Notre Dame fan who has been down for a very, very long time. Florida State, however, was riddled with injuries and were a very young team, as was Notre Dame. And I think that's the thing we can look forward to in this game. Two teams that have very solid recruiting classes. Two teams that have veteran leadership. And two teams that overall want to get this win to secure recruiting. For the second year in a row, Florida State has won the Florida's Governor's Cup, beating both Miami and Florida. For the second year in a row, Notre Dame has found a way to finish on a slight winning pattern. The question is, who is going to prevail in this game when you take a spread offense versus a very complex, multiple, even a pro-style offense where you see a lot of passes, a lot of short, a lot of deep, and you don't see a lot of running. It's going to be a game where you see a lot of passing yards put up. And I'm interested to see how Notre Dame's defense will react to Florida State's offense. What do you think, Slegna?
I like to add that that's the Champ Sports Bowl because you didn't say it because it's so important. Florida State Notre Dame is a matchup that intrigues me. Like you said, both teams they had very underwhelming seasons. Not only by their standards, just in general, program standards, but both these teams had national title expectations coming to the season. Both teams, I'm looking at the schedule, and both these teams could have easily gone undefeated. Notre Dame should not have lost to South Florida. They could have easily beaten Michigan. They faced two good teams in USC and Stanford, but those were both winnable games.
Yes.
In Florida, they lost by 10 to Oklahoma, 5 to Clemson, and 5 to Wake Forest, which was almost inexcusable.
It was, and then they lost to Virginia
and
at
they lost
the
to
end of the year.
A Virginia team that personally I feel is underrated as well.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's no excuse for them to have lost to Virginia.
No, not at home, at least.
Oh, certainly not. I think Florida State wins this one. Florida State's defense is just absolutely amazing, even with the young players. Didn't you say that they were starting like 10 underclassmen on defense?
Florida State has started 21 freshmen this year.
See, that number's just mind blowing to me.
Yeah, it is, because I know I thought that they were going to actually redshirt some of these players and try to get the maximum value out of them. But in all honesty, a lot of these kids will probably leave FSU in 2 more years. I mean, that's how talented this core group of players is.
Yeah, I agree. This matchup will be fun to watch. It takes place right before Washington and Baylor, so I'll have a fun day watching football in 9 days' time. I think Florida State wins this one. It will be a low-scoring matchup. It should be pretty close, separated by no more than a touchdown and a field goal, no more than 10 points. But I think it'll even be closer than that. I'm thinking it's going to be like 17-14 Florida State. This will be a really, really fun game to watch.
I'm going to throw out there that Florida State has trouble against decent defenses. And the one thing people forget about Notre Dame is that they have a very good defense. Sure, it's not like numbers-wise as great as Florida State's. No, not many teams are. But Florida State against a team like Notre Dame that has a good defense seems to not move the ball very well. And that is going to be a very key stat and talking point when you look down this game. Michael Floyd is a complete stud at the wide receiver position for Notre Dame. And you'd be foolish not to think he can't get 100 yards against them. And that's going to come down to, can they stop him? I don't think they can. I think Reese will have a good day passing. He's not a great quarterback, don't get me wrong, but he's an efficient quarterback. And the one loss they did have, the one loss they did have, one against Michigan, one against Southern Florida, is all about the quarterback position. And since then, they have been as good as anybody in college football. You take away the USC and Stanford game, they are as good as anybody else. Now, yes, they don't have a lot of 10-point wins, the wins you can look at and go, ooh, they beat someone big out of those other games. But they were in it with Stanford until late. They were in it with USC until late. And they should have won the Michigan game. I don't see Florida State winning this game. I think it's going to be 24-14.
Yeah, I have to disagree with you. I think that Michael Floyd is a stud, but Florida State's corners, Greg Reed and Xavier Rhodes, outside of LSU, Florida State might have the best two cover corners in college football. And I don't know, FSU shows up for bowl games. You know, a couple years ago, the Gator Bowl versus West Virginia, Bobby Bowden's last game. On top of that, then last year they played South Carolina in the Chick-fil-A Bowl. And everyone said, oh, Marcus Lattimore is going to run your ass over. And sure enough, 3 plays into the game, he catches a swing pass, and here comes Greg Reed, all 5'8", 165 pounds of him, and lays him on his ass, knocks him out for the game. So if you think Florida State can't cover Michael Floyd, you're terribly mistaken. He might get a lot of catches, but he's not going to get a lot of yards. Florida State's defense will smother him. Brandon Jenkins and Bjorn Werner, I love saying that name, both are extremely aggressive defensive ends that are not afraid to get after the pass rusher, or the passer rather, the quarterback. On top of that, Florida State has struggled against good defenses. They've actually looked fucking horrible because they don't really have a very good running game outside of true freshman Devonta Freeman. So I do agree that Florida State's offense has taken a serious step back. I'm hoping they find their rhythm for not only this year, but for next year. And I think this is the game to do it. You know, you got Manti Te'o leading a pretty tough defense in Notre Dame's against a Florida State team that quite frankly was in national title contention before the injury bug bit E.J. Manuel. I don't think it's going to be a blowout, but I do think there are going to be some points put on the board. I'm going to say Florida State 31, Notre Dame 24. And I just think E.J. Manuel, you know, he's going to have time to fix the things that he did wrong versus Florida. You know, they didn't play well against Florida, but they still found a way to win. They played pretty good against Miami. You know, there were some weird calls in that game, and they played pretty good against Oklahoma's defense for the most part. So I do think Florida State has it in them to win. And I think the advantage they have is, you know, it's a game in Florida, if I'm not mistaken. There's a Chance Sports Bowl, so it's in Tampa. You know, I know Notre Dame travels well, but come on.
Notre Dame travels better than almost any other team in the country if they play in a good bowl. This isn't a great bowl, therefore I don't expect them to travel all that great.
I don't either. And you know, Tallahassee is not that far from Tampa. You're talking maybe 5 hours.
When healthy, Sierra Wood is as good of a running back there is in the nation. And that is the one thing they've got going for them in this game is they can run the ball and take the pressure off the passing game. If the passing game for Florida State isn't working, they will lose, and they will lose big. So they have to pass the ball to do well. They have to rely on their defense to keep them in the game. That is why they're not as good of a team as they should have been this year. And that's why I just don't – I like to argue the point that it's going to come down to if whoever can move the ball. It's not going to come down to who has a better defense. And the thing is, Florida State's had a very tough time lately moving the ball. And if you can't move the ball and you don't have the talent to move the ball, sooner or later it's going to catch up to you. And I just see it's going to be right here.
Yeah. And my question is deep down inside, how scary are these two teams going to be in the next couple of years?
Next year, I would be afraid of facing Notre Dame and Florida State. I mean, what if Reese doesn't start next year and actually the guy that everybody says would be a better quarterback, it actually is the better quarterback, and comes out, and they come out with everything going right for them from the beginning, I wouldn't want to face them. And Florida State, good Lord, that defense, if enough people stay long enough to do anything, and the freshmen play as good as they're projected to play down the road, those two teams should win their Florida State will win their conference. Notre Dame should go at least 10-2, if not 11-1. And that would put them right smack dab in the middle of the championship picture.
Well, and I think the thing to me that is rather scary about the thing is Florida State's got to stay healthy, first off, before we can do that. That's something we've had issues with, especially from the quarterback position. That being said, that being thrown out there, Florida State, for back-to-back years now, has had either the number 1 or number 2 recruiting class. They don't have that many recruits right now. They only have 15, but out of the 15 they have 9 of them in the top 150. So that's pretty good by that standard. That being said, in terms of the game, I think the key is E.J. Manuel. I think he's going to be the biggest part of this. If he plays excellent, Florida State can't be stopped. If he plays like ass, Notre Dame's going to roll. But I'm thinking it's going to be a fairly close and a fairly tight game, and you know, I think it's good for Florida State to keep winning games like this, because you know, sooner or later something is going to have to give.
Both teams, seriously. Yeah. I mean, Notre Dame has been on the cusp before in the last 10 years, and they keep on, like a year later will just fall apart. And the difference between this team and the teams in the past is they never had defenses. They were decent offenses to great offenses. Now you got a defense that's actually catching up to them and keeping them in games when they don't need to. Yeah, they had that big blow up against Michigan. Everybody had problems against Michigan this year. But you take away that game and take away the Air Force game, real honestly, they played pretty well. I mean, yeah, they gave up points to USC and Stanford. So they didn't give up a lot of points to Stanford and USC. I mean, 31 is not like that horrible. And you just look at the way these two teams are built. They're very young teams. This is a very good matchup. I'm going to be watching all the way through on the 29th. And it could be one of the gems of the whole season. It really could come down to the last possession. And I hope it does.
Yeah, I don't hope it does. I hope Florida State beats the dog shit out of Notre Dame. And I say this lovingly because 4 of my assistant coaches are Notre Dame fans, and half of my family is from the state of Indiana. So I'm really extremely hoping Florida State beats the dog shit out of them so I don't have to hear it. That being said, that's just personal preference.
Yeah.
Andrew, do you have anything else to add before we shut it down?
I think you guys covered it. I really don't have much more to add.
Well, that's fantastic because I don't want to hear you talk anyway. What about you, Mourn?
Yeah,
You got
fuck
anything
you.
else to add? Hey, fuck you. Don't interrupt me.
Other than that, this bowl season's starting off pretty well with the games we had last weekend, especially the New Orleans Bowl, or what do they call it now? And
yeah, the R&L Carriers New Orleans Bowl, live from New Orleans, Louisiana.
that was a fun game. I loved watching the end of that game.
Well, if you think that was fun, you should have watched the fucking Ohio.
I saw the clips of that. That was fun to look at too. Both those so far are starting off to a good trend. I hope they continue. I really do, because it'll make up for the fact that I have to sit through an SEC championship game for the final game of the year.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm kind of confused by these conferences when they get all these teams in, just splitting up the conferences in different sides. And they should just let them play and have a random draw of who plays who, and have the best two teams in the conference play at the end. So you don't have the games like UCLA and freaking Oregon in the end. You'd have a Stanford-Oregon rematch, like it should have been. Instead, you have these games where you're like looking at going, this is a mismatch, and everybody sees it coming. And now instead of eliminating one of these two teams in the championship game in the SEC, they get to marvel at the fact that they're going to have two teams playing together in a national championship game instead of settling it in their own conference, like they should have to.
Yeah.
The UCLA thing wasn't their fault, though. USC would have been, but we have.
Blame Richie Bush again, huh?
No,
I
blame
think so.
Lane. I blame Lane Kiffin and Pete Carroll.
What?
That's who I blame.
Why do you blame Lane Kiffin?
Because he was part of the staff too.
But he's the coach now. It's confusing.
He wasn't the coach when the violations that were occurring.
No, but he was the offensive coordinator and the recruiting coordinator.
So blame him for winning all those games?
Yeah, but no, blame him for the recruiting malpractices. He's like the abortionist of recruiting. Yeah, that's right. I just said that. All right, guys, you got 60 seconds for a closing argument. Andrew, you're on the clock. Go.
What are we arguing about?
You're not arguing. You're giving your closing thoughts.
You said closing arguments.
Well, fucking talk about something.
Yeah, 45 seconds now.
Yeah. Weird. Seattle, San Francisco, going back. Yeah, fuck you. I'm going to talk about it.
You got 45 seconds.
I had 45 seconds 15 seconds ago.
Yeah, 30 seconds then.
Yeah, you got 30 seconds now.
It'll be a closer game than you think, Seth. However, I think San Francisco will win.
15 seconds.
Their only offense is Marshawn Lynch, and San Francisco will bottle that up rather quickly.
5 seconds.
I'm done.
And game over. Mourn, you're on the clock. You got 60 seconds. Go.
I'd like to wish everyone a very happy and Merry Christmas to all those that actually had the gumption to listen to us this week. We have coming up a weekend of basically lame football matchups, capped off by a decent one on Sunday night. But everybody should be focusing on what happens after this week. If a certain AFC West ends up falling apart and giving Kansas City a chance to control its destiny. Please, NFL, let this happen. I want to see Tim Tebow crying as his team loses against a team that has no business in being in the playoffs. Seconds. I want to see the nice choir boy in trouble. I like the guy, but I think that this whole season has become a sham. I don't want to see freaking Woody Page make nice with Skip Bayless ever again.
Game over. All right, I got 60 seconds. I'm on the clock. I'm going to say this. I am absolutely fucking embarrassed by the goddamn Tennessee Titans and how they lost to the Indianapolis Colts. So embarrassed that I am actually considering
45 seconds.
Sending Mike Munchak a giant letter to call him a giant cunt. On top of that, the Tennessee Titan organization PR staff has made sure all comments posted on the Titans Facebook page that said fire Mike Munchak
30 seconds.
Immediately deleted. Trust me, I know I posted about 8 of them. That being said, Florida State gives me hope that they will roll Notre Dame's ass, and I can do the Seminole chop all night long while Andrew cries
15.
over his poor little puppy dogs getting ran the fuck over by a big bad bear. So, everybody have a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, Merry fucking goddamn everything else that I can think
Mary
of.
Jane, too.
And we're done.
I think we're done. Peace out, guys. Thanks for listening.